Hey, welcome back to My Local Podcast. My name is Drew Harrison, and I'm super, super excited about today's episode 5, and we're talking about house church pastors with some of my favorite people. To my right and your left, we have Katie Davis. And I almost want an applause. I'm like, somebody applaud. And then we have RJ Clements to her right as well. What's up, RJ? What's up, Katie?
Hi.
Super glad to be here, man.
I feel great, and I'm glad you're here as well.
Yeah.
This is actually RJ's second time on the show, and so we're excited to have him back to talk just a little bit more in detail about what it means to be a house church pastor. What did you guys do today? Were y'all just hang out or?
I went to work and then I came here. So
Sweet. You got a new job at the mall, which
I
is
did.
super sick. In the food court. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. It kind of would be cool, like in the '80s. I got a new job at the mall.
That is kind of cool.
It's not the 80s.
Yeah, you're right.
Sound
It's not.
cool.
They say that 2020 is the new 80s. You heard that?
Did they say that?
Some people say that.
Okay.
Tuesday.
What about you, RJ? What you been up to today?
Oh man, I feel like I've just been doing life.
Yeah.
Being here, being elsewhere.
Okay.
Well, let's
I
jump
don't
in.
know if there's a better answer than I don't know. I didn't do a whole lot.
That's a great answer. You don't have to do anything. I just want to know what you did.
Not much.
Man, we're excited though, but we want to talk about some things My Local related. You guys are both house church pastors.
So they
and,
say.
So they say. So they explained
Says it
to
on my
me.
business card.
You actually have business cards.
You don't?
I don't.
Oh no.
I need to get a business card. So what does your role look like specifically as a house church pastor? That's the title of our episode. That's what we're talking about. You guys both do that. And more specifically, what does your role look like? I want you to kind of give a background of what it's looked like for you to serve at My Local, just in general too. Start with Katie.
Oh, awesome.
Ladies
I was gonna
first.
say start with RJ, but I guess not. So I moved to Nashville about like 4 years ago now, I guess. And literally like the first week I was in Nashville, I went to a big My Local. And it's just like the craziest thing because I moved here and I was just praying like, Lord, I need community. I need people. Just open up that door. And then within the first week of being here, like it was just like so obvious that this is what he wanted me to do. And then it was just like, I don't know. It's just like I blinked, and now we're sitting here doing a podcast
That's
about
so
how I'm
real.
a pastor of one of our house
It does
churches.
feel like
I'm
that.
like, what the heck's going on? Like, I remember the first person I met was you. The first person I met
and
was
that's not
Drew.
for the camera or for the audio. That's a real story.
Yes. So the fact that we're sitting here filming a podcast is so cool. But anyway, sorry, that's just freaking cool and exciting.
That is cool.
But basically, I was going to McKenna's small group. Didn't even
Oh
have
my gosh, so much has changed in 4 years.
didn't even
too.
have house churches yet.
Yeah.
We were just doing Bible studies. I was going there for a while, and then like super quick, we sat down, had a meeting about me potentially leading my own small group. I did that at my old apartment, and then it just kept tumbling along to where, now I'm leading the downtown My Local house church.
How cool
and
is that?
it's so freaking amazing and beautiful.
You have the coolest name of any house church.
That's
too,
true. I love
downtown
using it. I'm like the
Oh, no.
downtown house church.
Yeah, sounds bougie.
Yeah, it does.
What about you, RJ? What's that look like for you?
I was just gonna say, like you kind of mentioned this, but I feel like things have changed so much.
They have.
And in the last 3 years, it's been awesome. 4 years. I was about to say, I got hooked up with My Local because of Jared. Jared and I were really good friends, and I remember him actually having to convince me to come quite a lot. And ended up just like similar experience, just like coming in. It was actually at the Cordell, and I met you the first time I came to.
Wow,
or
you're
maybe it was the
welcome.
second
Both of you
time,
guys
but
are
it was
welcome.
crazy because I didn't expect to meet you
Yeah.
at that point in time.
I think we hung out at the diner afterwards
We
that
did.
night. And I was like, I like that guy. And we dapped up, and I was like, we're homies now.
Yeah, and then you went back to Mississippi, and I didn't see you for 3 months, and then now you're here.
That's true. That is
Crazy.
true.
And I similar experience, like
Yeah.
just wanted to be involved in any way,
Yeah.
and serving. There's lots of different ways to serve in My Local, that from being a leader to house church pastor, but even other places as well. So I just knew that I wanted to love on people and to lead Bible study and to lead worship and stuff like that. So it just kind of was a natural fit. And after conversations with Jared and with other people, it just was like, yeah, you should do that. So
Totally.
I mean, it's all in the DNA of My Local, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
start new house churches, and so that's constantly in conversation with our people.
Right.
100%.
And
Which
one
makes
thing
it easy.
one thing I remember about you specifically is like there was a time before we had house churches where we all were like in RJ's crew.
I know, it was a
It
weird
was like
time.
me, you, Danny. I think Jared come around sometimes. Several people that are leading their own like house church, or Danny's leading the worship team now,
Right.
and the audio for the podcast. Hello, shout out to Danny. But we were all sitting at the table at like Double Dogs and like random places in West Nashville because it's close to your house. And I remember one day we got there and we're like, we can't keep doing this, so we eventually have to go and reach the people that are in Nashville. And that's what I've seen you guys do. Katie being out in Murfreesboro, I was like, will we ever see her ever? Because that's so far away. And now she's like doing my local in downtown. And then you're there in West House Church and at your house. And so it's been really cool to see like how it's grown and it's become like a really special thing. And so what specifically does it look like for you guys pastoring a house church? I feel like sometimes house church still in my brain, it like comes across as like, oh, house church. What is that? You know what I mean? It's like, it feels different. Like you don't hear people talk about house church a lot. Yeah. So what does it look like for you guys to lead it on a larger scale? Like your job or your role specifically week to week?
Yeah. I never want to take like pastor as like a small task. Like it's definitely a big thing, but it's also really organic at the same time. Like we're not, you and I aren't opening up a massive church and, you know, running massive teams. Our house churches are small, and it is that way by design, and because it creates intentionality. Yeah. And so really it's do life with your leaders and to lead them as best as you know how, both spiritually in any regards really, but to spend time with them, to coach them and to encourage them. And that trickles down all the way down to, you know, new locals or people that are brand new to the. Yeah. So I would say it really just feels like me encouraging and doing life with 10 to 15 people.
Yeah. I think going off of what you were saying, we have this really beautiful system set up at my local where we have our house church pastor, we have a girl and a guy leader, we have co-leaders, we have a worship leader, and it just kind of like trickles down to where it's not just my responsibility to make sure that my 15 to 20 people in my house are healthy. It's my responsibility to make sure that the overall vibe is good, but also that my girl and guy leader are healthy and that they're excited and they're passionate and they have what they need. And when they have what they need, they're going to do that with their co-leaders. And when their co-leaders are also healthy, that trickles down to our locals. And then that trickles down to just everybody. So it's this really beautiful system, like RJ was saying, when I do life really well with my 4 leaders, then that just naturally goes to the entire house church. So,
and I think a lot of leaders and people, myself included, can get it really complicated.
Totally.
But when we look at Scripture, we're told that if you were to combine all of what Jesus' teachings is to love God and love people.
Right.
And like if we do that really well, with the people that are under our flock, the people that we are leading week to week, and we encourage our leaders to do that, we're actually completing what Jesus has called us to do. Right. And so I love that. And so take me into like a day. So it's Monday. We do all of our ministry days on Mondays. Take us into like, it's Monday afternoon, 4:00. What's kind of going through your minds? What's kind of going through your heads as you're getting ready for house church at 7 p.m. and what it looks like when people start to come through? Katie.
So for my house church specifically, my girl and guy leader actually kind of break down a flow each week. So that way
delegate that to them.
So all of our leaders kind of already know in advance, like I'm breaking down the chapter, I'm leading worship, I'm doing prayer, I'm doing a welcome and a game, like whatever that looks like. So on a 4:00 and at Monday, all of us should know what the flow is going to look like. All of us should already know going into it, this is what we're doing. And that is designed, that's put in place so that we aren't putting so much pressure and stress on those tasks. Because as we've already talked about, like you asked us, like, what's your role as a pastor? Me and RJ immediately answer with relationship. And that's how all of our leaders should be looking too. Like, I don't look at my role as a pastor or as a leader as, oh, I have to do this, I have to break down the chapter, I have to do this, do that, like all these tasks. It's really just relationship. So whenever we can figure out a way to organize all of those tasks that we do need to do, because they're very important, whenever we can organize those well, then it gives us more freedom to really zone in that whenever we get there, I already know that like my responsibility is breaking down the chapter for the night. I've already done my study. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Now I can just love on the new people because I'm
Right.
not thinking about the breakdown of the chapter.
That's great.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that to summarize like what you said, like the role of the pastor is really to number one, do relationship with people and put the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
Like is use people's talents to the best of their abilities
Right.
without making them feel used.
Yeah.
Is giving them like a purpose within the church. And so I would say similarly, you know, if I haven't given the flow by then, it's a crazy day. But everybody should
yeah.
know.
Which it
everybody
does
should-
happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
but
happens.
Everybody should know, you know, similarly, because we get into rhythms too, because a lot of our people are really gifted in certain areas. You
Yeah.
know, I think about Zeb often. Like Zeb mostly knows that he's leading worship.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and the cool thing about that is you talked about kind of delegation or whatever, but it's really just giving people ownership. Is to say
Yeah.
like, this is yours. I trust you and run with it.
Yeah.
It's like Zeb is already organized with, you know, Austin or whoever to make sure that lyrics are done, that songs lists are done. You know, here's if we may do this other song if the Holy Spirit leads us to. You know,
Yeah.
there's all these kinds of like things that our people are doing that they're leading others as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's just kind of like I would say, you know, relationship. I don't want to beat it at a horse, but like I'm checking in with, you know, with Chase or with, you know, my people to make sure that like, hey, are you okay? Like, is today a good day? Or,
Yeah.
you know, is there any way I can help or anything like that?
Yeah.
And to go off of we put out new videos every week of our pastor Jared that talks about our values at my local. And so we have the local is like an acronym for all of our values, and the one that we're on right now is contribution. And so to talk about like contributing really does something to your heart, because
Yeah.
we see over and over, and he even explains in the video that's been put out recently, is that like we see Jesus says he doesn't come to be served but to serve.
Right.
Right.
And so it does something to your heart. It eliminates pride. It humbles you to serve someone else, and it really just fills you up to be like Jesus more.
Right.
And so what you were saying is like you're putting people in positions where they can win, where they can serve and
Right.
and build the kingdom with you.
Right.
So what does that look like when you look across your house church, the people that attend your house church? And how do you bring up new leaders? How do you disciple someone from just attending to like being in the game? And we'll start with RJ on this one.
Yeah, it's a big question that I feel like you need a separate podcast for. But at the same time, I mean, because you're trying to put all discipleship in one box. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think the short end of it is doing life with them to know when they're ready. I mean, sometimes, and it's also, are they willing or want to? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
you never want to put someone in a position just because they're capable. Like, I just want to make sure that that's been said too. Is that like, we want you to want this, we want you to feel ready, and sometimes it's just doing life with them to make sure
Yeah.
that they're ready for that step,
Yeah.
and just coaching through that. I think.
I think it's also really important to note that the last thing you want to do is like you go in thinking he's a leader, she's not a leader, she's not that,
Yeah.
because we don't know anything. We
Right.
don't know
Such a good point.
anything
Yeah,
about
such a
like
great point.
who's a leader and who's not. You know
Feels
what I
very
mean? Like,
judgy. in a
totally.
lot of ways.
Like
Yeah.
whenever we look at scripture, like it's very obvious that God picks people that make no sense on the surface as leaders.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's great.
the
Katie.
last thing you want to do is go into it with a judgmental mindset of like, they should have this or they should have that. They should have this.
100%.
It's like, as long as they love God and love people, like they're going to be a just amazing leader,
Yeah,
and
that's
we
great.
can shape them into that and put them wherever they will blossom. Like,
Yeah.
but I think if you are looking for specific things, because you're like, okay, cool, I'm not going to judge them, but like, what should I look for? I would
Yeah.
just say consistency.
Yeah.
I think is a really
Definitely
big
number
one,
one.
because if someone's around a lot and we're doing relationship with them, then it should be a really easy like, hey, where are you at? Like,
Yeah.
are you interested in moving up? Like, I could see you doing this. I could like, and I think it goes back to this whole, all of it tying together, because like RJ said, when you are walking with these people, those conversations are really easy.
Yeah.
But whenever you just see someone and you're like, I think they could be a leader, like, oh yeah, for sure. And then you get coffee with them one time and bring it up. It might be really awkward. And you're like,
Right.
why did I do this? Like, this is not what they
Yeah.
want at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it all goes back to just doing life with people and
Totally.
just talking to them.
And seeing where people are.
Yeah.
I love that. As you said it so well, because for us to step in and to be like, I know how all this is going to play out. It's such a weird place. That's not our
Yes.
role
Yeah.
for the Lord. And I think one thing that I've noticed over my years of just ministry is that when someone's called to do something by the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
unless they're just like running from him like crazy, they're going to come to you ready to do
great.
something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Totally.
hard to like ignore the Lord when he's
Totally.
like, I should probably step in the gap here.
Right.
And when they come to you with a heart convicted over that, it's really easy for us as leaders to say, I have a spot for you. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
I also love the fact, like what you said, that like leadership looks different. And I think that has been my biggest learning curve is
Yeah.
like, not every leader looks like me or anybody else.
Yeah.
Or
That's true.
people lead in very different ways. And a lot of times, like my wife's an extreme introvert and she's like, I can't lead anybody. I'm an introvert. I'm like, that is the most furthest thing from the truth is like people lead in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And I think that like, it's also good to note is that like everybody's a leader to someone.
Right.
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
And I think that's what like we've been trying to hone in on like the character of our house church is like everybody can lead someone. Like
Totally.
even if you don't know if you are or not, you are.
Right.
Like you're leading someone.
Yeah. And especially like in our context of leadership, it's all about relationship, like we've already
Yeah.
noted so many times, to where it doesn't mean you need to get on a stage. It doesn't mean you have control. It doesn't mean you make decisions. It literally just means you do life with people
Right.
and like shepherd them hopefully into the right direction a
Right.
little bit. So
Yeah.
I think it's also really funny because I feel like it happens all the time where our locals will naturally be leading
Mhm.
our other people in our house churches, and they don't even realize it until we're like, hey, you're actually already doing this. Like,
Exactly.
do you just want the title now?
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
And just like stepping in the gap, like we've talked about this recently, is like when someone is, because I mean, for example, there's many times that I feel like y'all lead me and vice versa. Is like in moments of like doubt or pain or just consequence, there is a lot of time where you lead me in a moment or vice versa. And so I think that it can be a moment by moment basis that only occurs in relationship.
Totally.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's one more question I have for you. Whenever you guys are like homies, of course, and
For sure.
Yeah.
but you guys are also different in ways. How does
Not by much, but
right?
True.
And you guys
That's
haven't
really
really been to each other's house church, but how would
Never.
you say that they
oh,
differ?
that's so weird. Yeah.
Mine is definitely physically more attractive in every way.
Physically more attractive.
I would say.
I knew you were gonna throw that in there. I just knew it.
I'm just
I don't
kidding.
even
She's
know.
like,
how
that's
to
my
follow
short
that up.
answer.
That was a joke.
No, I don't. I think it's easier to. Yeah. Okay. So let me back up here. I think that our house church is full of people who are very consistent to a T. Like I don't know if this is
Cool.
different. I'm just describing my. I don't want to be like your people are.
My
consistent."
people are
It's like we're more consistent than you.
It's like we're better looking, we're more consistent.
No, I just like I've noticed recently, and Drew's even pointed out, it's like there's just some people that have just been around for a
Yeah.
while
So
now, and
cool.
just like never,
Totally.
just like love doing life together in the
Mhm.
way that we're doing it, and yeah, I
Yeah.
love that part
That's
of
great.
it.
That's cool. I think that all of our house churches have a very different personality, I feel like.
Totally, yeah.
And that's completely just because of the people we have in the room.
Right.
Like just naturally, if you have different people in the room, there's going to be a different vibe and a different personality. And I think that the downtown house church would probably be identified as a pretty youthful and just like fun
Yeah.
night where
agree.
like we will dive into worship, we will dive into the word, but before and after we're gonna rage. And if you don't want to do that, because like for us that might be
Yeah.
like, holy crap, like absolutely, let's rage, let's have
Yeah,
the best night
yeah.
ever. Other people are like, I have to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to stay at your house all night and
Right,
play
right.
Guitar Hero or whatever we play,
Right,
rock band.
which is so fun.
Is it like 2015? I'm like Guitar Hero.
I
But yeah, like some people don't want to stay out and rage all night, and that's completely fine.
Totally.
We have another house church that will probably wrap up earlier than we do.
Yeah.
But if you're down to like be loud and like joke and stuff, then downtown house
so
church,
true.
you know?
Yeah, I think about like it's funny because I feel like I'm both of those things.
Mm.
Like I feel like there's nights that I rage and nights that I'm just like very thoughtful and soft spoken. Kind of weird. But like I even think about like just comparing all other house churches as well as like Seth's house church. Like they follow a lot of his personality. Like Seth
Yeah.
is very thoughtful. He's very intelligent, and the way that he speaks is like
Yeah.
a very
hey, our cameras died, but there's a lot of great content that we don't want you to miss. So we're going to put up photos and pictures and stuff, but the audio is going to be the same from the same conversation. So stick around. It's going to go right now. Just very reverent.
Yeah. And that may be completely different than one of our house churches cracking a joke or something in the middle of a very thought-provoking moment. But like, I think that it really is based around the personalities in the room. And and I would say it changes as people come in and people move out or people go start new house churches. Like it's kind of a ever-breathing thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Well, how would you guys encourage your house church tonight? If you had just like a quick line to say like, hey, I love well, just fill it in for yourself.
Mine's actually not a quick line, but if I was going to encourage our leaders or just my house church or any of our house churches, just something that I've kind of like been walking through and like been learning a little bit is like, it's really easy to get wrapped up in like our position or our title or whatever. So it's like, I pastor the downtown house church. It's really easy for me to go into even my quiet time with the Lord with like this pastor hat on to where like I'm reading scripture and I'm journaling with the idea of like, I'm a pastor. Like, what is this what can I use in church on Monday or whatever? Instead of just going in simply as a daughter and like as a servant and good, like, Katie. Okay, God, what out of this scripture is just for me? Like, what am I reading today that I'm not going to share with anybody, but it's truly just for Katie? And I think that as we lead, we have to lead from overflow. And whenever we start going into our quiet time under our position title instead of just like a son or a daughter, it's really, really hard to lead from overflow because we're not getting full ourselves. Yeah. So I would just encourage you guys.
That's so good.
Lay off anything. It doesn't even have to be like in my local context. Like if you're like a wife or a husband, whatever your job is, whatever your career is, set all of that aside like this week and just spend some time with the Lord, just completely you and completely Him.
Katie. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Wow.
What about you,
awesome.
RJ?
Good luck, RJ.
Like, okay.
She's like crushed it.
It's like, yeah, what she said.
RJ's like, love you guys. Have a good night.
No. Yeah, I was just thinking about people that are in our house church, and I just want to say is that you're loved. Like I don't know how you feel sometimes about yourself, but just know that like you are so deeply loved by
that's good.
Not only us, but literally the Lord. I mean, the Lord has sought you out and put you in this moment and in this house church and in this group of people for an absolute reason. And we just have to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to say is like, I accept that love, which tears down some of our walls. And I would just encourage you to lean into that vulnerability even more. Like we kind of pride ourselves at House Church West as being a pretty vulnerable group, but I would say that just know that you're loved, which will breed that vulnerability even more. And so I love the idea of us, I say loving ourselves, that sounds weird, but like just being like having grace for ourselves and then leaning in so we can love others in our house church even better.
Good.
That's
so
great.
Good.
Man, it's been delightful. And I hope we do podcasts forever. So I'm sure you guys will definitely be back because you'll have a ton of wisdom and the way you lead. And it's just fun to always talk to you guys.
So fun.
So if you are on here listening to whatever platform you're listening to on, I just want you to know we're going to continue to put out podcasts every other week. And so we're going to put stuff in the show notes for you to be able to join our Discord. And so if you're not connected to a church or if you want to know more about My Local, you can join that Discord and join us in some services, join us in some chats, whatever, or just DM us on our Instagram, which is at MyLocalNashville. And until then, we'll talk to you later. Love you guys.
Bye, guys.